What's up, friend? Welcome to the Pour Over podcast, the pod for Christians to grow together and learn how to pour into others. I am your host, Kyla. Today, we are going to talk about 12 things I have learned in my 20s. But before we do that, I want to take a moment to pray for whoever's listening, whoever you are, wherever you're at. Let's just take a moment to go together before the Lord. Father, I thank you for this day. I thank you for this community that we have and this podcast family. Jesus, I just thank you for whoever is tuning in today. I thank you for them. I thank you for their lives. And I thank you that you love them, Lord, that you died for them, God. And Lord, if they are walking through anything difficult right now, I pray that they just surrender it, God, all to you. I pray that they lay it at your feet. And Jesus, I just lift up this episode as I'm recording, as I'm speaking, God. I pray that revelation comes to myself and that it comes to whoever's listening, God. Let not my words be spoken, but yours, God. Speak through me in this episode today. And I pray that something I say touches the hearts of the people listening, God. I pray that from the things that you have taught me, the things that you have used to grow me, Lord. I pray that those things touch the people listening, God, that together we are just able to look back and see how good and how faithful you have been in our lives and how we can use that to remind ourselves that you will be with us every single day to the very end of the age, Lord. Jesus, I just thank you for every person listening. I thank you for this opportunity I have to be on this podcast, to be leading in this podcast, in this ministry, Lord. I give you all the glory and honor and praise. It's in your mighty name, Jesus, we pray. Amen. All right, let's get into it. Hello, podcast family. Welcome back to another episode of the Pour Over podcast. If you are new here, hi, I'm Kyla, and I'm so thankful that you decided to tune in today. Thank you for giving this episode a listen. We are so glad you're here. If you are not new to this podcast family, welcome back. Thank you so much for tuning in yet another week. I love this community that we have. I love all of you guys that are listening. I feel like we are just one big happy podcast family at this point. We are on our 11th episode today. And as I'm sure you can tell by the episode, it is a very special event that we are celebrating this week. It's gonna be my 22nd birthday. Oh my gosh, I'm so excited. I think I mentioned it in an earlier episode how I am a birthday girl. Like, I love celebrating birthdays. I love any and every holiday. I will really take any excuse to celebrate anything and to kind of romanticize anything. So I love any holiday. I love any excuse to celebrate. But birthdays are just so fun because you get to really celebrate who that person is. You get to celebrate that they are here on this earth for another year, that God is continuing to do something awesome in them. I just love celebrating birthdays. And who doesn't love celebrating birthdays with a good birthday cake? I don't know about you guys, but me, I love carrot cake. Oh my gosh. I know there are some people out there who are not carrot cake fans. And for those of you out there listening who are not carrot cake fans, I am very sorry that you are the way you are. It's very unfortunate, but I am a believer. I love Jesus and I firmly believe in praying for those who need it. So I will be praying for you. Just kidding. But I love carrot cake. It's my absolute favorite cake in the whole world. So I will take a carrot cake as a birthday cake any and every day. But as I said before, I love birthdays and I love celebrating any birthday, especially mine. I'm kind of one of those girls who makes the birthday month a big deal, not just the actual birthday. But it's fun because there's so much anticipation coming up to this next year of life that you have, that you're going to be celebrating, that you're stepping into. And every single year, I kind of try to get a feel for like, okay, what's the vibe? What are we thinking? What are we feeling for this next year of life? What do I think God is going to try to be teaching me in this next year? What is He calling me to either take on or give up? What is He calling me to step into in this next year? I really try to be as reflective and intentional going into another year of life as I can possibly be. I just really believe that birthdays are a good opportunity for you to be a little bit more intentional and also romanticize your life a little bit. Like I said, there's nothing wrong with romanticizing your day. And if that means romanticizing the day because it's 20 days before your birthday, so be it. Make it fun. Buy yourself a cute little present that you normally wouldn't buy yourself. I love celebrating my birthday, but this is being released on the 27th of August, and my birthday is on the 28th. So happy birthday. Well, I guess happy almost birthday to me. I'm not going to lie, as much as I try to be intentional with whatever year I'm going into, I kind of don't really have like a firm grasp on like how I'm feeling about turning 22. I feel like 22 is like a weird age. I would honestly rather skip 22 and just go straight from 21 to 23. I know that's not possible, but I just don't know how I feel about 22 yet. I do have a lot of really exciting things that are hopefully in store for this next year of life. So I definitely have plans that I'm making, goals I'm hoping to achieve, and I have a lot of motivation for things coming up in this next year. But other than those things, I really don't have a lot of like clear direction about like where exactly I'm supposed to be taking my life. So I'm really just kind of trying to take it day by day, I guess. And I'm just going to keep leaning into the Lord and just continuing to pursue whatever He puts in front of me. Right now I might not have a clear direction or any clear calling, but who knows? I could wake up tomorrow and there could be this brand new crazy opportunity put in front of me. So, who knows what God has for me in this next year of life, but I guess we'll see. And I'm just excited that I have another year on earth, and this is exciting for me too because this is really like me stepping into a full season of this podcast. Like we're really getting into it now. It's been over a month that we've been doing this podcast. So that is one really good thing that I'm very excited to continue to pursue in this season. But I felt like since I do love birthdays and I do love my birthday and I love celebrating, making things fun and special. And since this episode is being released one day before my birthday, I was like, you know what? Let's do something fun. Let's just take a quick break from getting into the word and let's just sit back and talk about life. I love getting into the word. I love getting into things from the believer's perspective. But, I also just like talking about like real life things. And I never want to over spiritualize things in the sense of like where we forget that, yes, we are Christians, but we're also just people, and it's just life, and things happen. Things are weird. Being a human being is weird and hard sometimes. And let's just talk about real life things. I've said it before. I'll say it again. We get real on this podcast. So I wanted to still be intentional while having fun and being mindful of what is going on this week. So I was like, you know what? I want to do an episode on the things that I have learned in my 20s. Now, I have only been in my 20s for a couple of years as I'm only turning 22, but I would say that my 20s have so far been the best and most transformative years of my life, which is crazy because it's only 2 years that I've really been in my 20s. But I think that me being in my 20s and everything that I've learned and really what God has shown me and put inside of me and what He's used to grow me and change me and mold me, I do think that is helping me become the person that God wants me to be. And every day I feel like I'm getting closer and closer to really stepping into like everything God has for me. So I just wanted to put some thoughts and experiences out there because maybe if you're listening to this, you are a teenager and you're thinking about your 20s, but you're still in high school and you're like, I am terrified to become an adult. I'm terrified of going into my 20s because that's when real life happens. And I don't even know what real life looks like. I don't know what being an adult is. That looks scary, and I don't know how to handle it or what to do. I just want to share some insight with you so you don't fear your 20s so much. Or maybe you are in your early 20s like me and you are just waking up every day hoping for the best and trying to get your life together one day at a time. I am with you. I fully feel that. I completely understand. We are all in this together. But whoever you are, wherever you're listening from, I hope that the things that I share on this episode, just some of the things that have been revealed to me that I have learned in these past couple of years, I hope at least one thing that I talk about really does stick with you and kind of inspire you and hopefully give you some hope and maybe change your perspective on a few things. But let's just go ahead and get right on into 12 things I have learned in my 20s. Okay, the first thing I have learned in my 20s: mentors matter. Mentors matter. I did not know when I was in my teenage years how much I would need close mentors. And I really learned this starting at 18, but I've started to take on more of like letting mentors be more involved in my life as I've stepped into the years of being in my 20s. I don't know where I would be without my mentors. I don't know where I would be without the people that God has put in my life to speak wisdom into my life. And the really crazy thing about mentors is that they can be someone completely unexpected that you never thought you would have anything in common with. They could be someone that God just puts right in front of you and you're like, where did you come from? How do we have so much in common? And it's really crazy how, like, once you start talking to someone and you start to realize how much you have in common with that person, it's crazy how you can really kind of start to understand, like, oh, God really wants this person in my life because there's no way that this person just happened to be in my life at this time when I'm going through this. And they've also been through this and they have this thing in common with me and we actually get along great. It's not a coincidence. God is clearly trying to show me that this person is meant to be in my life for this time for a reason. I love just hanging out with a mentor. I have actually a lot of different mentors in my life. Some of them are family members. Some of them are, well, actually, I would say most of them are people that I've met from church. And they're all very different people. Like all of my mentors, all of the people I consider mentors in my life, they are very different. They are not at all the same. They have very different life experiences. They have very different families. Their lives just are very different, but they all have a purpose in my life and they all have brought something into my life that no one else could bring into my life. Like I know they are in my life for a reason. And even though they don't look like the other person in my life that is in my life for a reason, they have a purpose too. And they all kind of form almost like this, like, you know how it's how there's that quote that says like it takes a village to raise a child. Like I really feel like that's kind of what my life has been like. It's been a huge collective of people who have just come together, including my parents. I mean, my parents are very different, but they have just done such a good job of staying by my side and supporting me and loving me. But I really do feel like it has taken a village to kind of make me the person I am today. And of course, I credit that to the Lord. But I really do believe that all of these different people in my life, they are in my life for a reason. And you never know when you're going to meet this next person that is just going to have so much wisdom and say exactly what you need to hear. I do know that later on, I want to do an episode on mentors specifically. I do want to discuss becoming a mentor and being a mentor to someone, and then also how you find the right mentor for your life because not every person that is older than you that has wisdom is meant to speak into your life, if that makes sense. Like, just because someone has a lot of wisdom and is older than you, that doesn't mean that God has put them in your path to speak directly into your life. So, you've got to find the right person that can speak to whatever it is you need to hear. And also becoming a mentor, that's something huge that you take on. And so there's a lot of different things that go along with that. But like I said, like I really don't know where I would be without my mentors. So if you're listening to this and you're like, well, I don't really have anyone in my life that I really listen to or can take advice from, I want to encourage you, try to find those people. Like I promise you they're there. You just have to open your eyes and pray about it and look for them. But they are there, and you really never know when someone can just give you the exact right words that you need to hear. The next thing that I have learned in my 20s is that it is okay if you don't have everything figured out. Now, some of you listening to this are probably thinking, well, obviously, of course it's okay if I don't have everything figured out. Like, no one does. But I really do think that there's this idea when you step into adulthood. Maybe it's just my generation, maybe it's everybody, but I think there's just this idea that when you step into adulthood, you're just going to know things. Like, you are just going to have it figured out. For example, taxes. I think there's just this idea that, whenever you become an adult, you just know how to do taxes. You guys, I did not do taxes on my own completely by myself until this year. And I'm almost 22 and I've been working since I was 18. So this is the first time I've done taxes on my own. The rest of the time, I needed my dad's help. I needed him to walk me through it because taxes are a big deal. You can't be lying to the US government. That's not good. They will find out and there will be consequences. So I wanted to make sure I was doing it right, but I didn't know how to do that because you don't just wake up on your 18th birthday having your whole life planned out and knowing exactly how to do all the adult things and understanding things like taxes and mortgages and, financial aid and loans and debts and credit cards and showing up on time for work and managing three different schedules and, all these different things that adults deal with that you don't really think about until you do become an adult. And then you're like, wait a minute, like, I don't know what I'm doing. I thought I was just going to, figure it out. And I very much have not figured out anything. But it is okay if you don't have everything figured out. You want to know why? Because nobody actually has everything figured out. Some people might look like they have every bit of their life together, but I promise you, they are trying to figure things out just like you are. No one has it all together. No one has all of the answers. And I think for a long time, I put a lot of pressure on myself. And I was like, you have to figure this out. You've got to get this under control. You've got to figure this out. But in reality, you have time. Like, there is no sense in pressuring yourself to instantly become an adult and understand all the things. It's going to take time. It's going to take a lot of growth and different life experiences for you to learn how to do things, for you to figure things out and find what works for you. The next thing that I have learned in my 20s is to be present because every moment only happens once. I wish that I hadn't spent so much of my younger years, even up until I would say I was like probably 21. I wish I hadn't spent so many of my younger years worrying and stressing and not realizing what was happening in the moment. Because if you think about it, every single moment only happens once. Like, you're never going to get this moment back. Like, this moment, as you're listening to this podcast, you are never going to get this moment back. Boom, it's gone. And there goes another moment. And here goes another moment. You're never going to get those back. And I wish that I had taken time to slow down a little bit and not worry and stress and strive and put so much pressure on myself. I wish that I had realized that every single moment is so precious and so valuable and truly a gift from God. And sometimes you don't need to worry about what's coming next. Sometimes you just need to take a second, sit back, take a deep breath and really look at your surroundings. Look at what is going on around you. Look at the blessings God has given you. Like, the small things, even though they might seem small and insignificant, they really are a big deal. They really do matter. And there are so many moments in your life that we just pass through and we just don't fully appreciate. But like, this moment right now, at whatever age you're at, you're never going to get this moment back. You are never going to be this age again. Like, tomorrow, you're going to be another day older. And every single day is an opportunity ultimately. And you shouldn't let that pass you by. We all have our bad days. We all have our off days. We all have our days where we're like, you know what? I really just want this day to end. But I'm trying to convince myself, I'm trying to teach myself not to think like that. Because if we just wait for whatever day when we, feel right, we are going to miss so many opportunities. We are going to miss the blessings that God is trying to show us, that God has put right in front of our faces. And we're going to spend so much of our lives being ungrateful and miserable and negative, when in reality, if we just took a second, stopped, slowed down, and looked around at what was happening around us, we could see blessings that were happening in our lives at this moment. The next thing that I have learned being in my 20s, and this is a tough one, but it's so important. The next thing I have learned in my 20s is that you do not have to apologize for who you are. I'm going to say that again. You do not have to apologize for who you are. And I'm going to give you a little bit of an example from my own life. So, I don't know if you guys have figured this out about me yet. If you know me personally, this will be no surprise to you, but maybe you don't know me personally. I'm sure you're learning this as you listen to the podcast, but I am a little bit of a yapper. I like to talk. I love to talk, actually. I could talk forever. That's why I have a podcast. I'm just kidding, guys. That's only one of the reasons why I have a podcast. But I'm a talker, and I am also naturally a very loud person. I don't mean to be. I don't try to be. I just naturally speak at a very loud volume. And I always say that I get that from my mom because she's very much the same way. We are both very passionate, energetic people. I am a very energetic person. I don't even know why. Like I don't know why I am the way I am. I really do think that it's from God. I really think that he made me this way for a purpose and for a reason. But I just naturally am very energetic and I have a lot to say. And sometimes when I get very excited, I get very loud and I'm not always aware of how loud I am speaking. Sometimes I am, and sometimes I have to stop and lower my volume because I'm like, Kyla, you are going off a little bit. You are being a little bit too loud. But most of the time, I really don't understand how loud I'm speaking, or how loudly I'm speaking, I should say. Pardon me, I corrected my grammar. Anyways, the point is, sometimes people get a little frustrated with me and they're like, okay, you are way too loud. You need to quiet down. Do you even know how loudly you're talking right now? And I understand that I don't always need to be screaming at people, but I also understand that God made me the way I am. He made me the way I am for a reason. And every single time, I'm telling you, every single time someone says, you're being way too loud right now, you need to be quieter, it actually like hurts me to my core. And it's because I don't try to be like that. And the way that a lot of people say it, it's kind of like demeaning, and it's almost as if they think that I'm trying to be annoying, which I'm obviously not. Like, my mission in life is not to be loud and irritate people. It just comes naturally. And I try to be conscious of it. I try to be aware of it, but sometimes I'm not. And sometimes I'm loud and it just comes out. And guess what? That's just how I am. But when someone says something like that to me, it hurts me to my core because it's like they're being demeaning to the way that I am. And it's just the way I am. It's just who I am. It's just a part of me. I'm a loud, energetic person. And for me, a lot of the times, like I said, like I don't try to be like that, but that's just the way I am. And for the longest time, I actually thought that if I ever spoke loudly, I needed to automatically apologize. And I needed to automatically, like almost before I even started a conversation, I felt like I needed to warn people or, remind myself, like, well, don't speak too loudly because you might irritate someone. But I learned that, you know what? I am this way and God made me this way. And there's a reason I am the way I am. I firmly believe, I don't know if anyone else feels like this, but I firmly believe that the Lord made me energetic and passionate and loud and excitable for a reason. I think if He wanted me to be more shy and demure, then He would have made me like that. But guess what? That's not the person I am. And I had to teach myself I don't have to apologize for being that way. Do I every once in a while apologize when I realize that I'm like fully screaming at someone? Yes, I do. I try to be conscious of it, as I stated before, but I no longer feel like I have to apologize. And if someone says, you're being too loud, well, guess what? I am that way. And that's just how I speak. And I am doing my best, but you don't need to be demeaning and rude to me just because I am the way I am. The Lord made me this way. And as much as I can try to control it, sometimes it slips out, but that's just the way I am. And if you don't like it, you don't have to talk to me. And that sounds a little harsh, but I actually, spoke to someone, this person that I know at my church, he is also a very loud person. You can hear him from down the hall when he's just saying good morning and greeting people, and it's so funny, and I love it so much because he is just as loud as I am, if not louder, and he owns it, and I've asked him so many times, I'm like, "How do you handle being loud and, like, people telling you that you are loud?" Because people say it to me and they kind of like hurt my feelings and I try to be conscious of it, but people are just kind of mean to me sometimes about it. Like, how do you handle it? And he was like, honestly, I tell them that's just the way I am. And if you don't like it, then you don't have to talk to me. And I was like, what? What do you mean? Like, you just say that to people? And he's like, yeah, like, it's just how I am. It's just how I talk. And if you don't like it, then you don't have to talk to me. But that's, as much as I can try, it's also just the way that I talk. And it's just the volume that I speak at. And if you don't like it, then have a conversation with someone else. And I was like, this is mind blowing to me. And that kind of helped me realize, like, I don't have to walk around apologizing. Like, if you don't like the volume I talk at, don't talk to me because this is just a part of who I am. This is just the volume I naturally speak at. This is just something that happens sometimes. And if you don't like it and it truly irritates you and you just simply cannot get past it, then you don't have to talk to me. But that being said, this goes for just the way that you are. A lot of us have different little like things or quirks about ourselves that we feel like we have to apologize for, that we feel like we have to like warn people about before they get to know us. But if God made you that way, and if God created you to be like that, you don't have to walk around apologizing for that. You don't have to apologize for having a sense of humor that not every single person gets. You don't have to apologize if you're not the loud person in the room. If you are shy and you're a little bit more quiet and you don't really like speaking out, you don't have to apologize for that. You don't have to apologize that you might not be as much of a conversationalist as other people. That's just the way you are. That's not something you have to go up to people and say you're sorry for. That's who you are. That's your nature. That's okay. And I'm so glad that I've learned in my 20s that I don't have to walk around apologizing for who I am. God loves me the way I am. If he wanted me to be quieter and to be shy and to not be as extroverted and loud and excitable and passionate and energetic, he would have made me differently. But he didn't. So if the Lord likes me the way I am, I'm going to stay that way. And if you don't like it, you are more than welcome to take it up with my creator. But I am the way I am. Jesus loves me the way I am. I firmly do not think Jesus is calling me to be any quieter in my life. So if you don't like it, I'm so sorry. Actually, no, I'm not sorry. We're not apologizing. But if you don't like it, that's okay. You don't have to. But you don't have to constantly be apologizing for who you are. If the Lord loves you the way you are, and if you truly believe that you were made like this for a reason, if this is just your nature and this is just how you are, and it doesn't go against the Lord's will and God's plan for your life and what He calls you to do, don't apologize for it. You are who you are, and that is okay. The next thing I've learned in my 20s is that family matters. Family matters. I think that when a lot of us are teenagers, we kind of forget the importance of family. And I do think that's kind of natural because that is not the age when you are focused on family. That is the age when you are constantly surrounded by people your own age and you are worried about your friends. You are worried about your friendships. You're not worried about your family. And I do think that's normal. That's normal for a young person to be caught up in their friendships. But as I've matured and grown up a little bit, I have started to realize that family matters so much more than I ever realized. Like, your family is your family for a reason. God put you in this family for a reason. Now, I'm not saying every single family is perfect. I'm not saying your family is perfect. I'm not even saying that your family is easy to deal with. A lot of us, if not all of us, have some family members that we don't want to interact with, that we don't like having conversations with, but they are your family for a reason. And maybe they've hurt you. Maybe they've done something in the past that has really hurt you and created a struggle inside of you. If that is the case, I am so sorry that you've been hurt that way, but I'm telling you, your family still matters. Like, God has put you in this family for a reason, and I know that might be hard to hear. We all have family members that are difficult for us to be around, usually because they've hurt us, but God gave you this family for a reason and you need them. I have started to realize as I've gotten older that these family members that you don't really get along with, you have to learn just to forgive and to move on. You can't hold a grudge, and you need to, more often than not, you need to reconcile your relationship with them. You need to make things right with them because it's not making their lives any better. It's not making your life any better. In some specific cases, there are times when you really just don't need that specific family member in your life. But at least for me, I feel like when I get my feelings hurt by someone that's in my family, I tend to want to just push them away, but that's not love. And that's not what God wants for me. And that's not what He wants for my relationship with this person in my family. So I have learned that really spending time with family, whether it's your aunt, your uncle, your cousins, your parents, your siblings, your grandma and grandpa, your great uncle, your great aunt, whoever it might be, those people really matter. And I've really tried to open myself up more to my family members and find the things that we do have in common while not apologizing for who I am and not, going in defensive. I try to just go up to them and not apologize for my life or who I am, but still be open to giving them love and having things in common with them and getting along with them because family is really, really important. Like, you need your family for a reason. The next thing I have learned in my 20s, oh, we are getting right into it. The next thing I've learned in my 20s is that not every guy is the guy. And if you are a guy listening to this, you can switch it up. You can make it not every girl is the girl. But I feel like I oftentimes get a little attached. And I don't even necessarily get attached to the person. I think sometimes I get more attached to the idea of being with the person. Oh, I can't believe I just said that on the podcast. Oh my gosh. But you know what? We are real. We're getting real here. And I just have to say it because it's just true. And I know that other women out there, other girls out there can relate to that. It might not even be that we know this person that well and we really think that they are the person for us. A lot of times, if you're like me, you build up this fantasy in your head of what it would be like to be with them and you kind of have like this imaginary relationship with them and that's what you get attached to. And that makes you think that every guy that comes along is the guy. And I also think it's hard as females, as Christian women or as Christian girls, we think like since we do want to, pursue being a wife and being in a biblical marriage, a godly relationship, we think like, oh, that guy walked past us and, he's carrying a Bible and he's kind of my type. That's my man. That's my future husband. And I think that's just something we need to get over, ladies. I'm sorry, I hate to say it, but not every Christian guy that loves the Lord and is cute is your man. Like, keep in mind, God has a person planned for you. So the chances of those five different guys that are in your youth group or your small group or your church that you think are super cute, you see praising the Lord all the time, the chances of them being your man are slim to none. There is only one guy for you. And not every guy that is attractive and loves Jesus and is a godly man is your man. Not every guy that comes along is your future husband. It is okay. I'm going to say this. This might be a little controversial. It is okay for you to date a guy and him not be your husband. It's okay to date a guy just to date him and for him to not be your husband. Now, what do I mean by that? A lot of us think like, oh, we need to be intentional with our relationships. We need to date for marriage. And yes, that's true. We don't want to waste anybody's time. There is no sense as Christians who are pursuing godly relationships, who want marriage, if that's what you think God has planned for you in your life, there is no sense in wasting anyone's time. I do believe in dating for marriage, but I also don't believe in putting so much pressure the first date that you have with somebody and, getting right down to like, well, what's all your trauma? And, well, how many kids do you want? Do you want the same amount of kids I want? Well, what about this? How do you pay your bills? What if we can't pay our bills? Like I just think that sometimes we make dating so intense and we make it weird as Christians. Like sometimes we make dating weird and we make our relationships with people weird. And you know what? It's okay for that relationship to end. It's okay to date a guy for a little bit, realize that he's not the one and move on. It doesn't have to be a big deal. That doesn't mean that you just let your future husband walk away and, your whole life is ruined and now you're never going to get married. That means he was just a guy and that's okay. Some guys are just guys and that is okay. Now, I'm not saying that they don't matter, but what I'm saying is that in your life, they might just be a guy that you date for a little bit and they're not your husband and that's okay. But something I've learned in my 20s is that not every guy you date is going to be your husband, and that's okay. If you date a guy and things don't work out, it's going to be okay. It doesn't mean you're going to be single forever. It doesn't mean that you just lost your future husband. There might be someone down the road that God has planned for you, maybe just not right now, and that is okay. The next thing I've learned in my 20s is that doing things on your own is not actually as scary as it seems. Now, me being a young, single Christian woman, I am very extroverted and I like to go out and I like to do things. I definitely enjoy my alone time and I like being at my house. I am a homebody to a certain extent, but I also am a doer. I love to go out and do things. But it can be a little bit hard to go out, have fun, and do things sometimes when you are single because there might be this idea that you can't do this thing unless you have someone to do it with. For example, going out and getting a meal. You might think of going out and getting a meal by yourself, like actually sitting down at a restaurant, ordering food and a drink, and just sitting there by yourself. You might think that is absolute madness. And for some of you, you might think that is insane. I would never do that. But I'm telling you, once you do it, it's truly not as scary as it seems. For example, this summer I went on a solo trip and I went, stayed by myself, traveled completely alone. I didn't meet anybody there. I mean, I met people here and there, but I wasn't hanging out with people there. I did everything entirely on my own. Every single second of that trip, the 4 or 5 days I was in Colorado, everything I did was on my own. And before I did it, yeah, it seemed scary because I was like, how am I going to spend this entire vacation on my own? How am I going to have fun when it's literally just myself? The only company I have is my own. But once I actually did it, it was so freeing and so healing. And I realized that if I can travel to a whole other state on my own entirely and only have my own company and enjoy it and have fun and want to do it again, I can do anything on my own. And once you just do the dang thing, it's really not as scary as it seems. Maybe you want to pick up a new hobby, but you think that you can't do that hobby because you don't have someone to do it with. Don't let that hold you back. You can go out and try that hobby on your own. Go out, have fun, romanticize it a little bit. This is your life. And yes, we are called to have community. Yes, we are called to have relationships with people. But this is ultimately your life, and you do not need to wait for someone else to be a part of your life to do things. Go out, have fun, do things on your own. And I also think that it's also a little bit freeing to do things on your own because if you try something new and you completely fail and you fall on your face and you realize you never want to do that thing again, the only one that you've embarrassed yourself in front of is yourself and you will get over it. So I know on the outside it might seem like, well, I can't travel on my own. I can't go out and eat on my own. I can't pick up this new hobby on my own. I can't do this on my own. But I promise you, you can. You can. It just seems scary. But then once you do it, your independence starts to grow and you realize that you really can do things on your own. And this is not just for people who are single. This is for people in relationships. If you are listening to this and you're like, I really want to do this thing, but I want to do it on my own. I want something for myself. I don't want everything to be centered around my relationship with this person. I don't want to do every single thing with this person. I want something for myself. I want to have my own hobby, but you know, what if this person gets their feelings hurt or what if they don't understand? It's okay to have things for yourself in a relationship. It's okay for you to be in a happy, healthy, 4-year long relationship and go out and spend time on your own. That's okay too. I promise you, once you just do the dang thing that you want to do by yourself, it is okay. The next thing I've learned in my 20s is to go after your goals. Now, whatever your goals might be, maybe it's buying your first house. If that's your next goal, I applaud you because the economy is rough right now and houses are expensive, but good for you. If your next goal is graduating college, if it's moving up in your career and getting a promotion, if it's maybe finding that person that is going to be the love of your life, it's starting a club, it's starting a small group, it's trying this new hobby, it's leveling up in your finances, whatever it might be, starting your own small business that you've been dying to start forever, whatever your goals might be, you've got to just go after them. There is such a sense of fear in all of us when it comes to our goals, and we think that we can't do it. For whatever reason, maybe it's a financial issue, maybe it's a time constraint, whatever it might be. Maybe you don't think that you actually are capable. Maybe you have the time and money and energy, but you just don't think that you will actually succeed in it. You just have to go for it. You just have to do it. You can only wait around for so long. So many of us put off our goals and we put off things that we've been wanting to do forever because we just keep telling ourselves that we can't do it, we can't do it, we can't do it. It's not going to work. We're going to fail. It's not going to succeed. Number one, failure is natural. It's going to come regardless. At least you tried, Even if you fail, at least you tried. Number two, so many of us would be nowhere if we didn't just try things. Like, you are never going to get anywhere in life if you don't try things. You just have to try. Whatever your goals are, go after them and make them your priority. Make that what you are focusing on in your life in this season. Maybe, you're like me and you have a birthday coming up and you're like, in this next season, in this next year of my life, these are my goals. And this is what I'm going to really focus on and really pursue. And I'm going to make these things happen. For me, for example, and in this next year of my life, I am wanting to move out into my own apartment. It's going to take a lot of saving. I've been saving. It's going to take sacrifice and work, but I want to make it happen. Another thing I'm really wanting to do is go on this trip to Israel with my church. And there's a lot that's going to come with that. Definitely the financial constraint is something that I'm conscious of and I'm working on that. And it's going to come with a sacrifice and having to work out a lot of details, but it's something I really want. It's a goal I have. And these goals, I want them, but of course, I'll never be able to accomplish them if I don't just try, if I don't just focus on them. So maybe you're a teenager and you're listening to this and you have these goals and these dreams, just go for it. Don't let being an adult and all the adult boring things like paying bills and having a job and et cetera, don't let the idea of adulthood being boring hold you back from pursuing your dreams. Or maybe you're in your early 20s and you're caught up with work or school or whatever. Don't let that hold you back from pursuing your dreams. Maybe you are older than, your 20s and you have this dream that you've had forever and you're nervous about doing it. Just go after your goals. It will do something so amazing inside of you to just pursue something that the Lord has put on your heart for a reason. Go after those goals and don't stop until you reach them. The next thing I have learned in my 20s is to not allow others to consume you. Now, what do I mean by this? So many of us, myself included, get so caught up in waiting for this person to text you back. or trying to people please or trying to work and work and work to make that person like you again. So many of us get so caught up in how other people feel about us or treat us and their place in our lives when in reality, we cannot be consumed by other people. The harsh truth is that some people just aren't going to like you. And in some scenarios, it might be because of something you did. Maybe you did something that really offended them and hurt them. Or in other cases, that person might just be determined to not like you, even if you haven't done anything to them, even if everything should be fine and it should be cool and good and right. Some people are just determined not to like other people. And you cannot allow that to consume you because that is their decision. That is their choice. They are choosing to live like that. They are choosing not to like you for whatever reason. They are choosing to hold on to that dislike. You cannot let that consume you. You cannot let that eat you alive. Some people are not going to be great friends or boyfriends or girlfriends, and they might do something to hurt you. Maybe they ghosted you. Maybe you've tried and tried and tried to get this person to hang out with you, and you're trying to put in an effort and you're trying to sustain this relationship that you have with them. Again, maybe it's a romantic relationship, maybe it's a friendship. Maybe you are trying to maintain this relationship and you feel like you're the only one putting in effort. At this point, you cannot let that relationship consume you because it's not doing anything for you. You're not getting anything out of it. They're not doing anything to maintain this friendship, to maintain this relationship. You cannot let them and what they do or do not do consume you. There are times when you just have to say, I've done my part. I've done what I can. I have to move on. I have peace in my heart knowing that I've done what I needed to do. And whatever this person decides to do at this point is completely their decision. It's up to them. If they want to choose to live like this, that is up to them. I cannot do anything about it. You can't control other people. And me, sometimes having a little bit of control issues, dang, all my weaknesses and vulnerabilities are coming out in this episode. Me having some slight control issues, I tend to want to control things and fix things and, make everything good and perfect and better, but that's not always reasonable. Like, that's not realistic. Some relationships aren't meant to last forever. And sometimes you can try everything to maintain this friendship or this relationship, but if they're not putting anything in and they're not treating you right, you have to move on. And sometimes, you've apologized to this person, you've tried to make things right with them, but they're just choosing to continue to not forgive you and they're just choosing to continue to not like you. You can't control the way they feel about you and you can't control the way they treat you. So ultimately, you cannot let others consume you. The next thing I have learned being in my 20s is that some things are better left private. Now, this I think kind of goes against our very nature, at least for a lot of us. Maybe some of us are private, but I think with the way our society is, especially with social media right now, we have this innate need to share everything. And it's because social media gives you a chance to do that. You can literally share whatever you want at any point throughout the day for any reason. And you don't have to answer to anybody. You can literally share any part of your life with anyone. Anyone can have access to your life. And for a lot of people, they've actually kind of made it normalized to overshare on the internet. And people kind of get clout for that. They kind of get fame for being like oversharers. And a lot of times we applaud them for that because we're like, oh, you're just so real. You're just being real and honest. And thank you for being so real and honest and like actually like sharing, because for a long time people have put up this ideal life on the internet that's not really real. And I think the way that social media and our society have merged and shifted now, we're not really about the glamorized life anymore. We're more about the real life. And we like to see more authentic things on social media, which is great. Except now people are comfortable oversharing and they're sharing every detail of their lives on the internet. And that's not really necessary. Like for me, for example, I have this podcast and I will always be honest with you guys on this podcast. Whatever I say, it's the complete truth. I will always be honest with you guys. But I also know that You don't need to know every waking detail of my life. I do try to share what I think needs to be shared that you guys can relate to, that God's put on my heart. I do want to be honest and genuine here, but I also know that you guys don't need to know every single thing about me. You don't need to know my schedule from the time I wake up to the time I go to sleep. You don't need to know every little thing about my life. I don't feel the need to share everything because some things are better left private. And also, in a sense, sometimes keeping things private is almost like a self preservation or like a way to protect yourself because you might post something and think that it's all fine and dandy. And then tomorrow you turn around and you realize that maybe you shouldn't have shared that because it no longer applies or it's not the case anymore. Maybe you posted about this guy that you've been talking to for 5 minutes and you're like, my man, my man, my man. And then tomorrow he turns around, he's like, hey, so actually I'm not really feeling it anymore. We're gonna go our separate ways. And then you're gonna really wish that you had it posted, my man, my man, my man. And the reason I keep saying it like that is because of that TikTok audio that goes, and that's what I get for screaming, my man, my man, my man. I don't know if you guys have heard it, but I always think it's funny because I think it's just part of like girlhood to get excited about a guy and then it doesn't apply anymore and the guy disappears and it's like, oh, that's what I get for, you know, shouting from the rooftops that I have a boyfriend when I don't. But, anyways, back on track. Back on track. Um, Sometimes it is a way just to protect yourself. And you don't want every person to know about everything in your life. There are just some things that need to be private. And I used to be a chronic oversharer. I used to just talk and talk and talk, and things would just come out. And a lot of my friends and family listening to this are probably thinking, well, Kyla, you still kind of overshare, but I've actually come a long way and I really have grown a lot. I don't share everything now because I know that not everything in my life needs to be known by everybody. I have a close circle of friends and family for a reason, and they are the ones who get the inside scoop of my life, and not every single person needs that. And sometimes some things are just better left private. The next thing that I have learned being in my 20s is that change is inevitable. A lot of us don't really like change, and especially if you're a teenager listening to this and or even a young adult listening to this and you're coming into your 20s and adulthood and you think you're just going to stay the same person and you've had a really great life and you just want everything to stay the exact same. I'm sorry, friend. It's not going to stay like that. Change is literally inevitable as you step into your 20s. I've learned that I have changed so much. Like my tastes in clothes have changed immensely. Even in the past year, I feel like my style has changed a lot. The way I like to do my makeup changes all the time. I can never decide if I want to do a full face or if I want to do like the bare minimum. Sometimes I just do like a natural in between. That's kind of like what I'm going with right now, but it changes on the daily. Same thing with my hair. I can never decide what I want to do with my hair. I can never decide if I want it to be short or long or medium length. I can never decide how long I want my bangs to be, but you are going to change so much. My taste in clothes have changed. My taste in makeup changes. The way that I live my life on a day to day basis, that has changed so much. My schedule has changed so much. Even in just like the past few months, my schedule has changed a lot. My priorities have shifted. The people in my life have changed. And that is that is a hard one to handle because a lot of us, namely Kyla, we like to think that everyone's going to be in our life forever. And I like to think that I can just hold on to everyone and they will always be in my life. And that's just not the case. Some people really are only meant to be in your life for a season. And I've kind of struggled with that. But not everyone is going to be in your life forever. And that's just the harsh reality. Your relationships are going to change. Maybe the relationship that you're in right now it might not last forever, and that's really hard to hear, but it's the truth. Or this friendship, this circle that you're in right now, you might think that this, like, circle that you're in now is gonna stay like that forever. You think, "Well, there's no way that after high school, we're gonna stop talking, we're gonna be friends forever." That's a great thought, but it's not always the case. Now, I'm not saying that there has to be bad blood and anything bad has to happen, but sometimes you just stop talking to people. And that's not bad. It just means that your circle is changing, and everyone's going their separate ways. Everyone has a different call on their lives. And maybe you get to do life with someone, and maybe you guys are going in the same direction. And those are the people that are in your life right now. But that doesn't mean they're going to be in your life forever. Your circle is going to change so much. Everything is going to change so much. And it really is inevitable. And so many of us waste so much time trying to just hold on to everything, trying to just make our lives stay the exact same way forever. But that's just not realistic. It's just not going to happen. And it's also not a bad thing. There are so many opportunities and so many people that are yet still to come that God wants for you. And if you spend so much time trying to hold on to everything exactly as it is, you're going to miss out on those things. You're going to miss out on meeting those people. So, yes, change is inevitable. It's going to happen. Everything is going to change, but it's okay. Change is inevitable, and sometimes it really is a good thing. Now, the last thing that I have learned being in my 20s, and this is really, I think, the best way to end this episode, is that you have time. You have time. A lot of us think that we need to get married before we're 23. And, we need to jump into our dream career by the time we're 25. And we need to accomplish this by the time we're this age. And we need to accomplish that by the time we're 28. And so many of us think, well, if I don't do this by this time, then I will have failed my entire life and my whole life will be over and I will have no purpose. But I'm telling you, you have time. Ultimately, in reality, your life is not on your own timing, anyways. It is on God's timing, and that is the perfect timing. That's the only place you want to be, is in His perfect timing. But so many of us worry and stress and strive because we think that we're running out of time. But you have time. You don't have to be everything and everyone's person right away. You have time. You have to give yourself time to grow and learn and understand things. Like I said earlier, you're not going to wake up on your 18th birthday understanding how to be an adult and have everything figured out. You have to give yourself time to grow. And especially when it comes to like personal things, like you have to let your character grow, and that takes time. You have to give yourself time to grow in your faith. You're not going to be a master theologian by the time you're 20. Maybe you are. Maybe you are a genius and God has given you a ton of revelation. That's great for you. Super happy for you. Feel free to hit me up with all the things you've learned and how you've learned it. But for a lot of us, our relationship, well, actually, all of us really, our relationship with God takes time. It's a walk with God. It's not, us going from one extreme to the other. It's not us going from not knowing the Lord to instantly, giving our whole lives to Him and everything is better and perfect and awesome. It's a walk. It takes time. And God has things in His perfect timing for a reason. And to us, a lot of times it might seem slow and it might seem like we just need all of this right now and we get tired of waiting. But I'm telling you, you want to be in the waiting if that's where God has you. It is a gift from God. The fact that God allows us to have time and the fact that God wants to take His time with us to fully see everything through and to make sure that things happen exactly as they need to happen, that is a gift. You do not have to be married by the time you're 22. You do not have to have kids by the time you're 25. You do not have to own your own house by the time you're 26. You do not have to have your PhD by the time you're 28. You do not have to have your full career started and escalated by the time you're 30. You have time. You have time. It's going to be okay. Just take a deep breath. But that is it. That is all I have for you today. This is just a list of some things that I have learned in my 20s. Like I said, I really have learned a lot in the past couple of years. I feel like God has just been hammering so many things into me, but I do think that, especially in the past year, but in the past couple of years, I've grown so much. Like when I look back at 20-year-old Kyla, or honestly, even 19-year-old Kyla stepping into being 20, I have learned so much. And, God has really done a huge work in me. And I'm so thankful for the people that have stuck by my side and given me that room to grow and to change and to kind of figure myself out. I'm not the person I'm going to be forever right now. I'm still going to change. I still have so much in store for me. And I know 21, almost 22-year-old Kyla is not going to be the way I am forever, but that's okay. And I'm just excited to see what else God puts in my path and what other opportunities and people He has for me because He's always been so faithful to me. And when I look back and I think like how God really did work everything out perfectly, I am just excited because I know that He's just going to continue to do that because that is His nature. But I hope that something I said stuck with you today, even as I was a little bit vulnerable and kind of shared some of my own faults and flaws on the podcast. I hope that it was relatable. And I hope that something you heard today stuck out to you and is something that you can take and apply to your life to grow and change as well. In the next episode, we are doing another deep dive, and we are going to be doing a deep dive into John chapter 8, verses 1 through 11. It's actually a really beautiful story that has always stuck out to me in the Bible. So I'm very excited to get into it. If you enjoyed today's episode and felt like you really gained something from it, please do not forget to leave a review and a rating so other listeners like you can be encouraged to tune in. And also, do not forget to tag the podcast Instagram. It is at the Pour Over Pod on Insta, so I can see where you're listening from and what you're gaining from each episode. And we can just continue to build this community that we have. Thank you so much for listening, being a part of the Pop Fam, and joining me on this journey. I love you guys, and I will see you next week.